Hello and welcome for another Holistic Creative Chat. I'm Haley and I am very happy today to introduce you to Gloria Gypsy, a ritual artist. I love that, Gloria. Art is such a ritual in my heart too, and to just say that out there, ritual artist. So thank you for being here to chat with us about creativity and healing and integration and all those things that so many of us love and are exploring with our soul work.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So a little brief backstory. Gloria and I have kind of known each other online, off and on in different groups for quite a few years now. And I started a group a few years ago when I was doing some collective prayer paintings that I was sharing more publicly. And it was called, I had a name at the beginning. I think it was The Art of Prayer. And then we switched the name to Sacred Art of Women. And that group still exists.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, I feel like that's maybe where you and I really first got to connect. And then it's just like crossing paths in the online realms. And now this year, you're one of my guest contributors for Spectrum 2015
Yes.
with a beautiful
Yes.
offering that comes out June 15th. So people will probably be watching this after June 15th. And so it'll be out there in Spectrum 2015 for any of our participants. So it's a real pleasure for me and hopefully for everybody else to just get to chat a little bit with you and get to know you better. So let's just start with the creative practice thing. I want to know what your creative practice is looking like right now, Gloria. Can you talk about that a little
Okay.
bit?
Yes, I'm actually in a transition that I set the intent about a year ago and talked a little bit about it on my blog and social media. I'm transitioning into 100% natural materials, art. I started collecting, and I actually came across a book, The Organic Artist, that
I have it.
really inspired me. Yeah,
Yeah.
and so I'm doing things like when I cut my son's hair and I saved his hair and I'm making paintbrushes with them
Very cool.
and grinding up rocks to make pigments and all this crazy fun stuff. And so I still have a lot of paint that I've bought and I'm using it up once it's gone, I'm totally 100% my own supplies, and it's just really a great process. Just I feel like I'm getting closer, like in relationship with the supplies by
Mm-hmm.
making them, and
Yeah.
um it it's a ritual too. Like, to me, all art, no matter what kind someone's doing, how they're doing it, it's a ritual, it's creation. So
Yeah.
I just love it.
Oh, I love that. And I'm so glad you brought that up as the first thing because I was going to take you there because I saw your recent blog post about it and I was like, "Oh, we're so touching on that." Because there's something well, it's for me it's just a personal passion too, but really like being intentional about nature and then is one thing and creating art that reveres nature is another thing. And and I would go so far as to say like nature is the ultimate muse. There's nothing like
Mm,
humanity has ever done that hasn't been inspired or somehow infused
yeah.
by what nature has to teach us. And then there's this whole other level that you're starting to explore, which is, taking the elements of nature and coming back to that sort of connection, which is a whole slowing down of the process. And I
Yeah.
love how you put it, coming into relationship with the supplies. So you may not have an abundance of supplies in the same way as when you go to the art store and like buy your paints and all that,
Mhm.
but you are building this relationship.
Yeah. And when I first started, I didn't see it that way, but just doing it, just starting to create, and it's very similar to when I garden, and I feel like I'm in
Mm,
relationship with my plants. So it just happens as I'm doing it. And then
yeah.
I realized one day, I'm like, wow, I'm really connecting, and it's really great. It's a
Hmm.
great process.
Yeah, it seems perfectly natural and organic, like the name of that book, but that that it that this is what you are pulled to do and how you're moving, what you're moving toward as a ritual artist, as you put it. It just makes perfect sense to me. I can't wait to see what you decide to share about some of that, what you discover in that process too. And it's something that has been like a personal goal of mine as well, to kind of move a little bit more into that or embrace more of that in. But I love that you were like gung-ho going all out. You're like, I'm using up my supplies. And then when that's done, I'm in. Like, it's a commitment for you. Yeah.
Definitely.
So good. So I want to talk a little bit about, just curious, like, what are strong themes that you see coming up in your creative practice? Because I know, like, over the years that you have digital art, you do intuitive painting, you do all kinds of things. You do like lots of beautiful sharing online, which I see all of that as an art too, you know. But what are like the themes? Obviously nature. And so maybe you could talk more about that, but are there others that come up for you in your creative practice?
Yeah, and that's another process I'm working with is I feel like I want to simplify more, or maybe a better word is to direct my focus more, because I do have, like you said, digital art, all these different projects. I just love creating and all these. I just love all of it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to bring it in and do probably less digital work, and um, just really focus on I'll still it's still painting. I'm going to a lot of the painting, and I'm going back to a little bit of the jewelry making, and just more the p- the types that I feel fit more with the natural supplies and things I can find in nature or create with nature. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of simplifying. That's my theme.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
So
And with jewelry too, that like leads right into that notion of, well, this is, this is an age old discussion when it comes to art making, but the things that, that we use that have function with us. And to me also, there can be, not always, but there can be a deep relationship with jewelry. It can be ritualistic in that way. And
yeah.
yeah. I love it. I just see such a strong theme for you, and you seem so centered in it as well, moving with that. And so the question that came up for me too with the digital art thing, because I think this is an important topic, particularly for people who are exploring what a holistic practice might look like, what it means to nurture all of these needs as a whole self, mind, body, spirit, and all the other ones, and so how do you balance, or what have you come up against as you've been trying to find the harmony with like computer time and as part of your process, and also like off computer time as part of your process?
Um, I go back and forth with it. I love the internet. I love being online, and then other times it's just too much, and I'll find myself very frustrated, I guess is the word. It's just too much input constantly, and then if when I'm working more with it, like with the digital art, I can spend a whole day, and before I know it, it's 7 p.m. and I've been online all day. And then
Yeah.
I feel very frustrated and I guess worn out at times. And that's part of where I'm taking myself back to and simplifying, where I'm going to have less online time, and um, just less electronics, I should say, not necessarily online with the
Mm-hmm.
digital art programs and all of that. And I do try to keep a balance with that, even if it's, watching a movie on TV or computer, cell phone, when I go out, when I'm collecting my supplies, for example, or
Mm-hmm.
just going out to sit in nature, I leave my phone inside. I don't even take it with me anymore.
Yeah.
And I've I've come to see that I have to leave something behind or turn it completely off, not just turn it off and put it in my pocket, because I just get drawn in
Mm-hmm.
with it. So that's kind of how I keep
Even,
my balance, and
yeah.
take it back. So
Even with like the camera on there, the photography element, which is, I know for me, that's a huge piece, it can pull you right in and then you're in. So what I really hear is again, which you've said a few different times in a few different ways, is being very intentional. And it's really a boundary thing too, like this consciousness of what your yeses are and what your nos are for these moments. And it's very powerful work, at least I find it to be. Thank you for sharing a little bit about that, because I think that's something that we're all working with in this online realm, and anybody watching can relate to some degree. I like to think of like this stuff online, this information, the input, all of it, and it feels a lot like consumption to me, at times, or at least when it starts to move from that place of being nourishing into where I get kind of like, oh, that's like when it's moved from nourishing to kind of like overconsumption. And it's like learning what that is for you, when you're full, mm-hmm. and then when to push the rest away, and that sort of thing. So, mm-hmm. Yeah, it's good work. So the question that I ask everybody is, how do you define healing today?
Oh, healing. Healing is kind of big and encompassing to me. Sometimes I find healing in unexpected places. A conversation with somebody that wasn't planned. I'm going to go talk to her because I'm having this problem, but just happened to be talking, and I love the unexpected healing that takes place. So I wanted to say that first. And I see it as I think it's more widespread nowadays. I think some people might think, what, when with everything that we're not happy with going on in the world, but I think there's, at least in my view or in my experience lately, the past few years, I've met so many people through the online that we were just talking about, mm-hmm. and I think more and more people are finding, even just with themselves, little bits of healing and putting that back out. So I think the more that happens with each of us individually, and the more it's out there. And for me personally, art has always been a big healing tool and process. And I think I see a merging of more of the traditional medical or science and what we would call in the past the magic, or the that kind of healing. So mm-hmm. Those are my three big views with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, healing work is it's powerful, and it looks different. And I love something that you brought up in what you said, because the great, I don't know the right words here, the great thinkers, the great leaders, the great people with practitioners with great experience in healing know and will always teach that a huge part of the healing process is the sharing process. So mm-hmm. like you said, especially like with the online capabilities now, for instance, but also in our day-to-day tangible right here lives, the ability to take the healing work we're doing and to move into that vulnerable space and say, here's what I'm doing, here's what I've seen, can be the piece that somebody else needs to begin, the catalyst for their own healing work. And then in seeing that our own healing has helped someone begin to heal more, we heal more as well. And so I don't know if I'm projecting all that, because that's kind of what I think too, but I really did hear that mm-hmm. in what you were saying.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing to understand about the importance of coming to our own healing work, I think.
Yeah. And I really believe that all healing, no matter what kind it is, starts within us first. Yeah. If we're not wanting it or ready, it doesn't matter what we do until we start to realize and work through our own stuff, and then outward.
Absolutely. So, yeah, getting clear inside. Mm-hmm. Not rushing to the sharing and the helping and all that too is so important. So I wanted to ask you one more thing for today's call,
okay.
because it's one of your beautiful projects. So tell us a little bit about Creative Sacred Living, if you would.
Oh, great. I'm glad you asked that. I started out last year as an online magazine. I got the idea with all of the women through the group, your group you mentioned, and other groups I joined, online artists, and they were so inspiring to me. And it just kind of evolved from my interactions with that. And so when I first started the magazine, I contacted a few of them. I said, I love what you write about. I love what you do, your work. Do you feel like contributing to this magazine?
Mm-hmm.
And they said yes. And so that's the start of it. And it's slowly been evolving into other things. And this going into this year, I've switched the focus a little, keeping the focus is creative, sacred living, and it's inspiring others in living creative lives, sacred lives, bringing a little of that into your life, just all these different aspects of that. And then, so I'm taking that into connection with our planet,
Mm-hmm.
with the eco spirituality, sacred earth, those kind of themes. And we're growing and evolving. We're starting with courses now, creative sacred livings. I'm evolving into a nonprofit and keeping the magazine. I'm going to have courses and a few other surprises coming up later this year. So,
Yay.
um,
One of the things I
yeah.
want to just reflect back to you, and especially since we have an audience, is that what I see in the work that you that is evolving, that's constantly in process, and that you've been doing over the years, and especially as it's coming through in creative sacred living, for instance, is a real generosity of spirit. And I see that you're interested in trying different ways of exchange for that. For instance, like your Reiki course online right now at the Creative Sacred Living is, I believe, a suggested donation, and it's an incredibly generous course. And in what you get for that, even, you know, that very affordable fee. And I see, I guess my sense about it with you, Gloria, is that this is part of your value system, the way that you keep trying to explore these different ways of exchanging and these different ways of offering things.
Yes, and then bringing it out to whoever wants to take a look or participate or just out into the world like
Yeah.
that. Yep. And
Thank you, Gloria, again for being here, and thank you everybody for listening. Gloria, did you have anything else you wanted to mention? Or?
I don't think so. I think that's good.
Okay, all right.